Beyond Live. Hello and welcome. We're glad you made it here to the webinar. My name is Gabrielle Fontaine, and I have been so kindly brought in by Pixie to be together to run this webinar with you. And we're going to talk about systematically onboarding your new clients, which can be a hair-pulling situation, but we're going to learn how to do it in less time with less stress. And with us today as our co-instructor is Matt Fox. And Matt, so glad you're here. And please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Gabrielle. Hey, everyone. Thanks for attending. Appreciate everyone joining us today. Yes, as Gabrielle said, my name's Matt. I'm an Australian. I've been living here in London for about 2 years, and I was an accountant in a past life before I moved across to the tech sector. I've worked for Xero, Practice Ignition, and now Pixie, and recently got a new puppy, so he's super cute. If we have time at the end, I'm sure I'll be able to show him on camera. But yeah, I love to play sports too, a bit of cricket and rugby, and that's how I spend most of my weekends.
Excellent. Wow. What we're really looking forward today is for you showing us like the nuts and bolts of how we can really get the workflow working much more smoothly in Pixie, but even in concept for onboarding new clients, which is a super important process for us in the bookkeeping and accounting world. And my name, of course, is Gabrielle Fontaine, and we don't need to go through all this, but I've just been around for a long time. I've been running my bookkeeping business since 1990. So yes, I'm that old. And my business has been completely virtual since 2003. So you'll see I do refer to working virtually and completely through the internet. So if you're not already there, that's why I do that. But we'll try to apply it even if you have a local practice dealing with clients just locally. I'm in the QuickBooks world. As much as Matt came from the Xero world, I live in the QuickBooks world, and I'm in association with the Digital Bookkeeper Association, which is new in the States, as well as I've done lots of speaking and training at conferences and online for the accounting world. So bottom line on that is just to know that I've been around for a long time, and I currently do pretty much all of my training through bookkeepers.com. So if you've ever been over there, that's in the bookkeeping world. So our agenda today, we do have a fair bit to go through, but I would suggest that as we go through, go ahead and put your questions in, because we do have time at the end to answer your questions. And also you may want to have some way to take notes, whether that's electronically or on the good old fashioned paper, because if you pick up a few tips that you can really implement right away, we want you to capture those. So what we're going to go through is the challenges of new client onboarding. They are many. If you've had more than a few clients, especially all come in at the same time, walking through the onboarding process framework. And this refers to the guide that we put together, released earlier in August, for the onboarding workflow and template. So if you haven't had that, I guess put it in the chat box, or if Jordan will put a link to that, we can have that in there too. But that we're going to go through and dig in on what some of the information in that. We're going to also give you ideas really for streamlining your onboarding using technology, because that's why we all want apps, right? Is to help us make everything easier and smoother. And then also how to bridge that gap, because accountants and bookkeepers, we love to learn. We want to know all the details, but there's a gap between knowing and doing. So we're going to just quickly see an easy way to get from taking in all this information and then now how do you apply it to your situation. And then we will show you, or Matt's going to show you, how to use the pre-designed template that's in Pixie that you can use. You will also, because you came to this webinar, get another version that you can walk away with. But you can see literally how to use this and see and compare it to what you're going through with your own onboarding to see how you can improve. And then, as I said, Q&A, and then we always ended up with what's your next steps? What do you do as a result of being here on this webinar? So first, let's jump into some of the challenges that we face in new client onboarding in the bookkeeping and accounting world. Well, I'd like to hear from you first on what your onboarding challenges are right now. What's it like with your onboarding process? This also helps us to understand, why is it that you came to this webinar. You took time out of your day, and just go ahead and choose the answer that best fits your situation. And we'll see what are the challenges that this group, our group, all of us together are having. And I guess I can't tell on this. I'm not as familiar with Zoom, if we can see what percentage of people have voted. But we'll close out the poll just as soon as it seems that we have the answers. And here we go. Here's our results. Most everybody says that they don't have an onboarding workflow yet, and that others are here, and it makes sense. So welcome, glad you're here. Others have it, but they realize that there's need for improvement. And then we have some who are almost there, that they have a good workflow. They just want to add some automation to it. So thank you very much. And nobody here's got it down all the way. Matt, do you have any thoughts on that? Is that typical that you're seeing in the accounting and bookkeeping world of where everybody's at currently with having a streamlined workflow?
Exactly right. That's a very similar set of results that we got when we ran this for our UK audience. And there's always a bit of room for improvement, whether it's through this app or another like Zapier, for example, where you can tie two pieces of information together, which I'll cover a little bit more about later on. Yeah,
we'll go into that. Well, we'll tease you on that part. That's the automation part often. But excellent. And you are in the right place because it's a big pain. And of course, we know how important it is with our taking on a new client. So what does it usually look like? I think most of you are going to know this, the dirty little secret, because for the client, right, we're saying like, we'll take care of it. We'll make your life easier. We'll handle all your, bookkeeping and accounting so that you can relax, Mr. Business Owner. But our dirty little secret can be that onboarding can be chaos. And we feel like Keystone Cops running around. Not all of us, as we saw, we're all at different levels, but it can be overwhelming, especially during busy season when we get several clients seem to be coming out of the woodwork. And of course, there's some urgency because if it's end year end or even now where they start realizing I've got to get ready for year end. So often it is also very time consuming because there can, depending on how well the sales process went, there might be more that was missed in the scoping out. So that can even affect us. And then if we are inefficient, if we're running around, and depending on how many people on our team are involved in the onboarding as well, things can drop through the cracks and we get near the end of the onboarding and then we realize we don't have an important piece of information and then we got to go back to the client and then we got to go back to the client. What impression is that giving to the client? Do they feel like we've got our act together? The downside is it can hurt because it's an early impression of us. They might love the sales process, but then once they put down their money, now they may be like, did I pick the right accounting or bookkeeping firm? And they may even start to have some buyer's remorse, which we would not want to have. This is an early stage in the relationship with our clients. So it's really important that we have this smooth process. But I know I'm really preaching to the choir here. So what a difference does it make when you have a nice, smooth system? Well, let's take a real case study of Monroe and Partners, where they struggled as well, like most of us do, even on occasion. Maybe we've got most of our systems down. What he said is that they missed, this is what David Monroe said, they missed steps here and there. And it was just felt like such a waste of time, losing energy. But he said, when things are missed, it can feel like you're letting your new client down before you've had a chance to get started. And that's true. And the key point to take away from this is we may be pulling our hair out and frustrated. What's it feel like to be your client? We need to be thinking about the client experience. And obviously David was in touch with that because he felt like, oh, we're letting the client down. But then he started using Pixie as his tool to help manage their onboarding and get their act together, basically. And now his result is that he says, once the engagement letters are signed, we set up the onboarding job, the team can immediately get on with it. They know exactly what to do. And we're getting everything done well ahead of time. Imagine what that's like, to be able to actually get the onboarding done much more quickly. That's going to please your client, please your team, build their confidence, and everything just is on an upward motion. And that's exactly what onboarding should be. So which method would you rather use? And I think we know the answer to this, but some of us resist, or some of your team too may resist getting a specific structure that you can use again and again and again, that standardizes your process and therefore then ends up streamlining it. But we see the example of the difference that it made for Monroe. And you know, when we see it visually, I know for me personally, seeing this visualization is like, yeah, how often do I tend to go around in circles? You're like, let's standardize this process. And it's important too, because sometimes our team, getting our team on board is important to help them realize it's going to be smoother for everybody. So having a systematized process where everybody's on the same page is hugely important. And it might only be a few tweaks to your system. As we saw some people here, they just needed a little bit of improvement or adding some automation. So let's start with the basic framework, and yours might be different, but this is pretty much a core framework of what onboarding entails. I come up with, in my experience, it's usually about a 6-phase process, might be 5, might be 7 in your case, but consider this, and this is where I'm going to say, if you have your notes, stop and think through each of these steps. Are you following all of these steps? Do you have additional steps? Are there some missing? Start thinking it through and take some notes or draw it out on the paper, because this is where you can start really shifting, is getting it out of your head, or even just seeing it written down, even if you know exactly how to do the onboarding. So first of all, it all starts with the sale, right? We have to have the engagement letter signed. I also recommend that you do not even start your onboarding process until you get a retainer, some money up front. And I'm just going to take a little side here in that I do everything on a win-win basis. And that means setting up the relationship with new clients on a win-win basis, which means even though we are serving them, that it's a partnership with them to get the results that they're hiring us for. The onboarding process is the great time to set up that whole relationship with them. And it starts with the engagement. We've now made the promises of what the results are that we can get them. They're ready to sign on the engagement letter. Also get them ready to sign over some money to you, because then they have some skin and investment in the game. So the first step should be in your process that you do not proceed, no matter how urgent it is, for the client to get this work done, especially if it's something related with taxes, they've got some deadline bearing down on them. You want to make sure that you have a signed engagement letter as well as a retainer. And I might be preaching to the choir, but just making sure, because I've seen many accounting and bookkeeping firms that do not do this. So this is a vital step in your onboarding. And then the next step would be to welcome the new client. You want this to be almost immediately after they've signed, they've done their part. Now you want to respond quickly to be able to, first of all, confirm their choice, that they made a great choice in choosing your firm as opposed to others. And then also providing them what's their first action that they need to take. What's the initial information that you want them to be giving you? Because they probably have to go gather information. So give them a checklist or something of that sort right away and letting them know. Another step in this as well, and we'll talk about it next time, but getting them to think what's going to happen in this onboarding process before we can start the regular services. Let them know that. And then the next step on that, of course, is an internal one, with the team knowing that, okay, we've got a new client. Great. What do we have to do to set up this client? So you want to set up whatever apps you're using to service the client. Also scheduling of the work that needs to be done, depending on what's specified in the engagement letter. And then also assignments to your team of who's going to handle what. So all of that has to be done internally. And then at that point, you should be ready to have a first meeting with the client. And this is like your orientation and getting things set up meeting. In a virtual practice, we do this as a virtual meeting. And usually this is to get the information that maybe they haven't sent to you from that initial list that you sent them. It could be things like setting up the bank feeds in the accounting software with their banks that they might not already have set up. It can also be resolving any questions that they have, as well as questions that your team might have on how it's all going to work or what the client specifically wants if there's a choice. And then also, again, every meeting that you have, this is a tip that will make a big difference in the relationship with your clients, is to, at the end of every meeting you have with the client, lay out, okay, here's our next steps. Here's the actions we decided on. Here's the next steps we're going to take. And that way you will always help to keep that relationship communicative, proactive, and staying on time, because we know a lot of times clients are busy. And by us being able to communicate with them and having them feel that we are their guides, we're helping them work with us in a way that works for both of us. And then this step you might not have in your workflow, but I do highly recommend it because it's one to build the client loyalty and to, again, help facilitate the communication, is to have some kind of a welcome package. Once you have everything close to set up, you want to ready to go, is you want to be able to like have it be the finish line in a sense from the client's experience, because sometimes depending on the client that you've taken on, it could be a big job. And if it's like a huge cleanup, or it could be hopefully ongoing services, but there might be a lot of moving parts to it. So there may be a lot of interaction, because in that fourth step, you may have to have several meetings with the client. So when you get to near the end, I say it's not necessarily completely at the end, but near the end, provide the client some kind of like celebration, acknowledge that they had to do some work too to get this done. And so if your company has any kind of swag, make it a little bit fun, but also provide them with like, who should they be communicating with? What is their schedule of, what is their expectations of the work that's going forward? Make it easy for the client to work with you. And there might even be parts in there, if there's some kind of training that you need to set up to work with the client, include that so that they feel like you are working together as a team. I do recommend that at least part of your welcome package not be completely virtual. Like I said, do something, send them candy, send them a t-shirt for your company, something like that, that will then make them really feel that you care. So that's the human touch that's really going to give them that stellar client experience. And also, of course, as we say, letting them know how they can communicate with you and how you'll be communicating with them in a way that they can refer to, because they have to build some new habits here. And then finally, the last step in your onboarding is really that transition for when it's ready to go to the main service or ongoing services that you'll be doing for your clients. So you want to do a final check to make sure everything in your onboarding process has been completed. And then also, if it's a different team, depending on how your business is structured, a different team who does the onboarding from those who are actually providing the services want to be able to hand everything off to them. And by then, you can all celebrate internally to know that the onboarding has complete, you have a great client, and you can be doing this simultaneously with several other clients and staying organized because you have a standardized system of it. So hopefully you got a few ideas about that if you haven't formally put together an onboarding workflow. But if you have, and we know some are here for this, now you want to, once you have your basic workflow, and know this, what Matt said at the beginning makes total sense, is that your systems, all of your system, not just your onboarding, we want to have them down, standardized, documented as much as possible, have a workflow that our whole team can be on the same page with, but it's always going to be changing. Our business is changing, the world is changing, what the clients need are changing. So we're never 100% done. We're always making and improving it. And that's a good thing, because we're always striving to improve, such as that term Kaizen, which is with small changes, we're making improvements. Well, it's the same, especially with your onboarding, because it's such an important workflow in your business. So we could streamline it by adding more automation and leveraging the technology and the different tools that we have. We know in our world, there's a lot of automation that's going on. But even if there's semi-automation, things that can make the process smoother, we want to be adding that in, help us keep track of it. Is all of that's going to help. So How could you do it? Well, first, of course, if you don't have your workflow, like this is the 20,000-foot level, but if you don't have it laid out, I'd say lay it out, use this framework as an example, but then make it your own, create what you need to happen in your workflow, and then look at it again with fresh eyes to say, okay, what could we use to streamline some of the process? Where do things get stuck? And a good example right at the beginning is maybe getting that, if you're a virtual firm, getting that first signature. Oftentimes we have a great meeting and then we're sending off the proposal to the client and then we're waiting for them. And then we have to nag them. Well, that can be automated. It can be much smoother and quicker and easier using something like Practice Ignition. They can also help polish your image a bit and help you with collecting that initial retainer to make it easy for the client to pay you. So that is an example of one that you might want to use. There are others out there. I know Go Proposal is somewhat similar, of something that you could use in that form. Also, with welcoming the client, we want, once they're signed, we get that answer. Again, if it's all electronic, right? We get notified right away that it's all signed. We see the money come in. Almost immediately, we want to be able to get back to the client, say, welcome, we're glad you're here. Here's our next steps, and setting up an appointment for gathering all that information. So Pixie, of course, you're going to hear a lot more about Pixie from here on in. Pixie's practice management, and Matt's going to tell you all about that. But Pixie can have this workflow system where once you initiate it, everything will start flowing, keeps track of it all. And within all of that, when you do your first, could be automated email, once you get the workflow started, within that email, you're giving that list to the client of everything that they need to give you. And then also, I'd recommend at that point, you want them to use your calendar, like Calendly would be an app you could use, to have them schedule your appointment. So you're not wasting with that back and forth to try to get an appointment set up. And then if you have any other apps that will trigger things, actions that need to happen, and this is where the deep design happens on your workflow, depending on how your practice runs, you can hook it up with Zapier. And if you've never used Zapier, it's pretty cool. I would give you one caution though, is that you do, when it comes to apps and automation, you want to use as few as possible. You do not want to be using a ton of apps all the time, because when you're building an automated system, the more pieces you have involved can raise your chances of having something break down and the whole system getting clogged. So I'd say keep it as simple as possible. You want as few apps as possible in order to make your system run smoothly. So within that case, we're mentioning you want to be able to have a calendar automation that's tied in with the email that can be sent out automatically. And then if you have other systems in place, maybe to a link to be help them upload, because in Pixie, you can upload the documents if the client in that list you're giving them, give them an easy way to upload those documents. And then internally, you want to set up whatever apps you're using to service the client, but even whatever you're using internally. And in this case, we have Pixie down. There may be others. And again, you can use Zapier to trigger a lot of this automatically. But if for your scheduling and assignments of your team, for those, you get that all set up in Pixie, and then that will run to be able to make sure everybody's on the same page and can be marking off what's done in the process, and you always know what's going on. And then when you have the meeting with the client, I'd recommend, actually, because I do this without thinking, that when it goes with the scheduling software, you want to be able to include in it or have it hooked up with Zapier to be able to schedule it with the Zoom meeting or whatever you're using for online meetings, again, assuming you're virtual, so that all of that just happens, and then you're just getting notifications, and the meeting happens at the time and date that's going to work for both of you, and you didn't have to mess and waste time on that. And again, you may have to have a few meetings with the client. But then with the welcome package, Pixie, in this case, it's not necessarily automated, but it can help you keep track of this step. And it can also be the place where you're helping the client to see how they can communicate with you from within Pixie and your email all working together to be able to make the experience for the client nice and smooth. And then finally, in the end, Pixie's great because of the workflow, which Matt's going to show you. You'll be able to see exactly, have we missed any steps? Did we get everything right? And then now it can even then lead to the regular ongoing services for which you would have a different workflow. So that's just to give you some ideas, but I would say first you've got to get your workflow down. And then you start looking, where do things slow down? Where does it feel like we're spending more time than we should on a low payoff activity? That's where you want to add your automation. But where it's something where the client, think as well for the client experience, how could you make it enjoyable for them? Because remember, many clients, they hate accounting and bookkeeping and taxes. They don't want to deal with this stuff. So make it as easy and as fun as possible. And if you can use an app to do that, definitely do it, assuming the client is, tech savvy too. So we have another poll here. We'd like to know, what tools are you using now in your onboarding process? And it might be as simple as just a spreadsheet, or are you using several apps? We'd love to hear what you're using, from practice management to project management, because there is a bit of a difference there, or Zapier to kind of build your own. And I'll leave it to Jordan to know when is the best time to end the poll. And if you've been multitasking, please come back and cast your vote. We all learn from one another. Excellent. So good. Now we're seeing, and I say the winner here are spreadsheets, which makes sense, right? Because that ends up being a simple solution when we're crunched. We all know how to use spreadsheets. Many of us are using project management apps. Some of us are using practice management apps. Some of us are using Zapier. Good for you. I love to hear that, just because, Zapier I resisted for years. And then finally I broke down when I had processes that I was like, I need to automate this. And it worked great. It was wonderful. And then there's some who aren't using any tools yet. And that's great too, because now you're at the point where you can really design some of this. Any thoughts on this, Matt? Because I know you are a workflow wizard. I've seen it in action. How, again, is this look typical? Do we have an advanced crew here? Because we have quite a few apps being used.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was a lot of spreadsheets. I mean, when I do demos of Pixie, or even just liaise with people who are interested in looking at it, spreadsheets is very common, as ClickUp and Asana. So we've actually had a lot of people move across from one of those softwares to ourselves. And within a demo with myself, I'll be able to show you a comparison between maybe where Pixie is really solid in certain areas and how we can maybe improve on what you're looking at or what you're currently using. So if you're interested in a demo with me and you want to learn more about Pixie after this, I'm sure Jordan can either launch a poll or we'll get something from you, and we'll be able to reach out and organize that together.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm sure you could always put it in the questions box too. Let us know that that you would like Matt to help you out. And then let me get this thing to move forward here. Here we go. So now let's bridge this gap. You've hopefully picked up a few ideas, maybe some questions, but that's okay. We're going to answer those. How do you get from where you are now to where you want to be, or at least that next level? Well, a lot of us want to learn, we know a lot, but it gets hard to implement it. And we can often get overwhelmed from it. It starts with just having a workable workflow, which is what we showed you. Start top level and then you'll drill down. But you want to bring it to life. And that means starting where you are now. What is your workflow like right now for onboarding new clients? Use that framework as a guide, just to get it clear in your mind. And you can work with your team on this to make it easier as well. But just go through what are the main phases of your onboarding process. And then you can drill down to like, okay, what are the steps we take for each of those phases? And using a pre-designed template, like just seeing that top level is helpful, right? It gets it in your mind, but now you're like, oh, I got to redesign that. Well, having an actual template that your team can follow and then adjust it makes it a lot faster, because you can edit it and make it fit your needs. And you're doing that while you're using it. And that right there is the crux of what we're doing with Pixie. This is why I'm working with Pixie, because you can use a workflow, get something to start with that have used by those in the practice, and then you can move it around and change it. With my own workflows, I do this all the time. I lay out the workflow, then I start using it. I'm like, no, I need to move this step around, or oh, I need to add another step. But you do it while you're putting it through, or your team is going through and doing it. And then you're going to end up with an amazing workflow. And just as a side thought, when you can get all of these in place, you've suddenly made your practice not only move much more smoothly, but made it much more valuable in case you're looking forward to your succession planning and you want to sell your practice. If you want to sell your practice and it's full of documented workflows that actually work and a team that works well, your business is worth a lot more. So this is worth the effort, but we have to start where we are, step by step, and using a template makes it a lot quicker. So if you would like to see this in action, how can you use an onboarding workflow template? That's what Matt's here for. And he's going to show us in Pixie. So we have a template for you, if you don't already have it, that's a Pixie file that actually walks through using that framework that we showed you, but in much more detail of how do you do new client onboarding. So take it away, Matt, and I have to stop sharing so you can do that.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Gabrielle. Let me take over here briefly, and we will jump into what Pixie is and how we can go about automating. Now, I've seen a lot of really good questions come through about, does it integrate with Zapier? And if it does, it does. But if it does it integrate with Go Proposal, Practice Ignition, QuickBooks, Xero, Calendly? Yes, it does, absolutely. And I'll show you a quick example of that today, and how, if we're going to be using 2 or 3 other softwares, can we bring them all together to achieve the most automated result? Now, this is Pixie. I've quickly logged in and I'm looking at all of my things that I'm doing for my clients. Maybe it's annual accounts, payroll, bookkeeping, tax returns, whatever it might be. We can have that automated and set up to recur on whatever frequency that we'd like. And Pixie really takes that pain away from us. So we don't have to think, oh, I forgot to do that, or maybe the deadline's coming up and it slipped my mind, or is that actually doing what I need it to do? Tell Pixie to do it once and you won't have to worry about it. And a prime example of setting up your Pixie account quickly is you'll have your very own task template or task to complete. And it will say something like this: welcome to Pixie, start exploring here. And really nice quick videos that I've built for you to show you how to do that, to set up the recurring work, to add your clients, to connect your emails, to make sure you got your staff members in. You can get this done in under 30 minutes, and you'll be surprised at how much you can get out of this. But today I wanted to show you how we can use an onboarding task template, put it across a range of clients, use it and see it in action, and then connect up to Zapier, and how to find resources to assist as you go. You might have also noticed that there's a start timer button at the top here. So if you do take timesheets or you want to do hourly billing for certain clients, we have a free integration with Clockify, something I might bring up a little bit later on. But if you want to know more about that, all you have to do is look in our knowledge base, which I'll show you, and I'm sure Jordan will add this into the chat somewhere. Search Clockify and you'll be able to see a quick 60-second video of me setting that integration up. And again, Clockify is a free tool, so it's actually pretty advantageous to have both of those running together if you like to do hourly billing. What I'm going to do now is set up a new client. I can do that from the client screen, or I can click this big red plus at the top, which just stays with us on any screen that we're in. But I'm going to click Add Client. There's the client's name. And what we're going to do is we're going to choose the client type. Now, Gabrielle, I'm going to just say maybe an example is Gabrielle is a prospect. So I've created a field to say that she's not quite a client yet. I'm really nurturing the relationship. So when we do bring Gabrielle on, it's going to be awesome. We're going to have everything set up, ready to go. And maybe I'll spend 25% more time with her at the beginning, so we have a long-lasting relationship. So I've created a type that is a prospect. I can add in an email if I need. I'm just going to put my personal one, so I can run an example later on. And now I want to know a bit more about Gabrielle, and I've added in about 50 different things that I expect to know about not every client, but some clients. For example, lead management. I have a 4-step process about my leads. And I've created certain fields here for where I go about doing that. So maybe, yes, she's a prospect for now, but by the time a week's passed or a few days, whatever it might be, I might have had my first meeting, I might have had my final meeting, and then I might have had a final onboarding where I've called Gabrielle and she's now gone from a prospect to a paying client. That's the advantage you can use there within Pixie for your lead management. I also know I'm going to do bookkeeping work for her. I've got a $1,000 budget, for example, and maybe I've got all sorts of dates associated with Gabrielle. For example, bookkeeping lodgement date, it's the 1st of the month. Payroll date is also the 1st of the month. She's got filing dates for certain things. Maybe that's the end of the month. Her year end's going to be, let's just say, right at the end of the year there. Now, I've given Pixie a lot of information about just one client in about 30 seconds. And straight away, I know, and my staff know exactly what we need to do for this client. So I'm just going to fly down here and click next. I can add Gabrielle as a contact. I'm going to skip that for now because we know that she's already a prospect. And now I've got a lot of information about her immediately. So I know that I'm going to be the relationship manager of this client. She's a prospect at this stage. We've got a budget, we've got particular bookkeeping dates. So now I can use those dates to my advantage and start work based on the client, not just universally. So maybe in the past, you might have used a product that was quite rigid. You had to do everything on the 1st of the month or the middle of the month or the end, but maybe that didn't quite tie into what your clients were. With Pixie, you can create smart workflows and just leave it to do the rest. Now let's create a smart workflow together. I'm going to click create task. I'm going to say, let's just do onboarding. We're talking about that today. Onboarding for bookkeeping client. Brilliant. It's going to be deadline is, well, crikey, that's a quick deadline. Let's say we'll do it, give ourselves a month, for example. Click next. Now we've got a lot of information pre-prepared by Gabrielle and the team here at Pixie of how we can go about working on and completing work for a client without missing anything, making sure we're kept accountable, completing all the information we need. So this is smooth and it's done well. Because as you saw in the slides before, David from Monroe Partners said one of the worst things you could do is maybe let something slip or maybe make the client feel like they're not as loved as they needed to be. This is how you can make sure that you're keeping on top of the clients and making sure that you're managing that relationship really well, because we've kept you accountable and a nice, easy to follow process. All right, now the example in here is we've created some stuff for you for, let's confirm the client signed their engagement letter. Now we might have done that through Go Proposal, Practice Ignition, or another software, but we also might be using Zapier to instantly, once that's signed, this piece of workflow is already created. So I don't even have to set it up for start. That's how smart Pixie and Zapier can be working together. Now, let me show you how that works really briefly. Now, if you don't know much about Zapier, it's totally fine. You can connect it through Pixie, and we've got some resources to help you. So for example, somebody asked before really smartly, does it connect to Practice Ignition or Go Proposal? Yes, it does. You simply search for the app. But what do I want the app that I'm using to do for Pixie? So straight away, I wanted to say, once the proposal's been accepted, I wanted to deploy workflow for me. Okay.
Nice.
Let's come down here and say, we're going to connect up to Pixie. Now, what do I want Pixie to do once the client has accepted the proposal in either Go Proposal or Practice Ignition? I want it to maybe add a recurring task to the client. Maybe I want it to update the client record, but in this instance, it'll be add recurring tasks to client. And straight away, I've created in about 30 seconds, a really quick streamlined process for once the client's engaged, the work then deploys in Pixie. That's how simple that process can be. And if you want to know a little bit more detail about this, the Pixie knowledge base up here, all you have to do is search Ignition or Go Proposal, and you'll be able to see a really streamlined video that Jordan on the call here has put together. And it's about 7 minutes, something along those lines. It's down here. And you can watch that step by step of how to create the task and how to connect the Zap like we did there. All right, let's work our way through this engagement. So we're going to say, we've confirmed that the client signed the engagement letter. Excellent. Has the client provided whatever they needed to up front? Let's just say we absolutely have. If not, stop, get that signed and authorized. So again, little internal checkpoint for our team. Maybe I'm not the one working on this, maybe Jordan is, or maybe I'm the junior and I need to complete this. before it goes to Jordan for review. And he's just put this in here to say, hey, double check this before we move on because it's a key step in the process. Beautiful. Let's move on here. Mark this is done. And maybe we'll come down here to the new client setup. So what we're going to do is maybe send the client a welcome form or something like that. Maybe you've got a, what do we call it? Like a questionnaire or a form or something along those lines where we can straight away ask, need you to tick off these 4 or 5 things to make sure that we got the information that we need from you. And then straight away, you're able to do that. Now you can actually do that out of Pixie, or you can do it within Pixie. For example, here's a really nice pre-prepared email that we've said. So to say, hi, Gabrielle, this will be automated if I was to put the Gabrielle as a contact. I can select her as a person to send this to. Congratulations, you made a great choice. And whatever this might be, again, pre-prepared, easy for you to send, and I might just send that away. We've also got this send task to request client information. Now, this is something I'm going to show you in a split second, but let's go ahead and see the email that Gabrielle has just received from us. Now, nothing weird here, doesn't show any strange HTML links or anything outside of the norm. This is exactly the same Microsoft 365 or Gmail email that you're used to using. All you have to do is connect it into Pixie and straight away, it will send as per regular. For example, please schedule a meeting and there might be a link here to take them into Calendly, or check your invitation for a client portal. And then whatever it might be, we can set all of this up. And again, it's got our email signature here at the bottom, pulling through from our respective email provider. So again, nothing out of the ordinary. It looks exactly like it is. Your clients won't be able to tell the difference. But what's happened now is because we've created a connection with our client, Pixie is going to automatically align every email that comes from Gabrielle and place it in her client record that I just created. So I don't have to worry about dragging and dropping any emails or creating any maybe time-consuming connections. Pixie does that for me automatically, which is really helpful. Let's try something else. Let's say I'm going to send this off to the client and I need Gabrielle, for example, to check and complete all of these for me. I need a copy of this. I need a copy of that. What I'm going to do is instead of maybe doing that manually or via email or something else, I'm going to request Gabrielle complete this within Pixie via a secure link that I'm going to send her. Here's an example. I'm just going to copy these. And what I'm going to do is click Client Tasks. Now I'm going to create a checklist for Gabrielle to complete. What I'm going to do is just remove that. So I'm going to say, please invite your staff member. I'm going to add that as another checkbox. Okay, so I'm going to click Save. And now I've got 7 or 8 or 9 different things I need the client to complete for me. This is where I can attach a file for the client to liaise with, and it's more of a central portal. And it's also a place where they can provide me the information I need to complete their work securely. Not only is it secure, we can add a password on top of this for heightened security, and we can discuss and chat with our client within this portal too. So I'm going to click Send to Client. Again, it's already pre-prepared. Maybe it's going to say, hi, Gabrielle, please complete the following. Here's your unique and secure link to give me the information you need. Your password is your date of birth, for example. And I might make that bold so it's really obvious for Gabrielle to see. So whoops, so she knows what that looks like and she knows what that answer is. And I can set this password in Pixie whenever I want. Not only that, I might have sent the email away, but then I think 3 weeks later, did Gabrielle actually send me what I need? Have I forgotten to chase her? How do I chase her? Pixie does the chasing for you. If you click this auto reminder, maybe every 5 days, up to 4 times, we're going to give Gabrielle a gentle nudge to say, hey, please complete all of these things for us. And if and when she does, those auto reminders will stop. Beautiful. So now I've sent that away. Let's see from the client's perspective what this looks like. So I've just clicked in here, accessing the particular link unique to Gabrielle. This is my business name, Flying Fox, and you'll have your own business name in there along with your business logo as well. So how does Gabrielle find this password and how do I provide that to her? Great question. Let's have a quick look. I've clicked into Gabrielle, the client, and as you'll see, there's a master code here. And on the right-hand side, 4 or 5 completely random words, which makes passwords quite easy or easy to for us to create, but hard to copy, if that makes sense. So they're very secure. Now, if we wanted to use this, we absolutely can. But if that's a little bit confusing and your client can't quite remember that, just edit it to something more manageable, like the example I used: date of birth, nickname, business name, your name, whatever it might be. But I'm just going to copy this, use this funny word in my example. This one here, paste it in there. And now Gabrielle has accessed what I needed her to. So let's pretend she's checked off all of these things, maybe these 4. I'm going to be receiving information or notifications inside of Pixie to say Gabrielle's provided what we needed. Let's say we're going to attach a file here. Let's just say, that'll do, bookkeeping template that Gabrielle sent to us earlier. Perfect. So now we've got the exact thing that we needed. We might say whatever we need to on the right-hand side, and we can chat and have a conversation with our client. Now, if I refresh this, I accidentally sent that twice. We can see exactly what Gabrielle's provided. We can see the attachment that's come through. Not only that, but we can also see the attachment in live time, when and where it came from, and we can actually click into it and use it. So that's a super handy way of maybe getting clients to sign records, to double check things before you lodge them, providing secure information through Pixie. Again, you saw the client didn't need a difficult login or anything like that. They didn't have to be a Pixie user. They simply needed a password in a link that you provided them. So very easy to connect there. All right. I might leave that there for now. Let's pretend we've completed what we needed to. We're going to keep going through our subtasks. We've nailed this one off. We've now set up the client, absolutely. We've prepared for the initial meeting because we've sent them the Calendly link. They've booked in, whatever it might be. Got all of these nice steps to complete, and we can do that in our own time. But what I wanted to do was show you how to create maybe what we just did there across a range of clients at once. Let's pretend we had 10 bookkeeping clients that we've set up in Pixie. We need to start work for, but I don't want to go through each and every client and do that one at a time. So what I've done is I have filtered out my own list of clients, whether it be the services that I offer them, the type of client they are, or who's responsible for them. For example, monthly bookkeeping clients. I've got heaps of them. I've got 32. I want to start work for all 32 of these clients at the same time. So what I've done is I've selected all of them. I'm going to click Schedule Task. I'm going to select the appropriate bookkeeping template. I've got heaps. It's, some for specific clients, some for different frequencies. Here's the bookkeeping one that I was going to use. Every client might have a different bookkeeping date. Based on the information in the client record, Pixie is going to be smart enough to start that when the time is right. So you won't have 30 brand new tasks to complete on a Monday because maybe only 10 of the clients start on a Monday. The other 20 start sporadically throughout the week. Pixie will know when to deploy that workflow. And that is how easy it is to schedule multiple pieces of work across a range of clients. I could have selected 4 or 5 things like payroll, bookkeeping, annual accounts, whatever it might be. I can select them all and get them all started really quickly like that. All right, we spoke a bit about Zapier. I showed you how to connect that up, where to find the resources, but how do you actually find it from within Pixie? We've got this great Get Support button up here, which everybody has access to. You can chat to us. So if you do have a question that you can't find access to or an answer to from our documentation, please just ask us the question. We've got really quick support. We're able to help you there in live time. And we've also got a roadmap. Now, this isn't quite accessible until you become an active user. But once you are an active user, you'll be able to see everything that's coming up in the future. I'll give you a quick peruse of that in just a second. But we've also got an academy. So Jordan, who is also on the call, runs live academy sessions, 5 a day, every day. So if you want to know more about Pixie, please attend those because it really gets the whole scope of what you're looking to do, such as how to add your clients en masse, how to connect your emails, how to invite team members, how to set up the workflow that I just showed. You can have an access or you can attend a session, which will show you all those key things. All right, now here's briefly a quick look at our roadmap. And an example or a question that was brought up before in the chat was document e-signing. We're actually building out that functionality now across a range of other things. Now, if you wanted to cast your vote to any of these, you're an active user, You can vote for as many as you'd like one time only, so that's up to you. You can also pass this around throughout the team. So if you've got a team of 4, you could actually upvote something by 4, and there's a great example there. All right, I think I've covered everything I wanted to there, Gabrielle. Did anything strike you that maybe I missed or you wanted to go over a bit more detail?
No, I think it's okay. We want to make sure we have enough time for questions.
Perfect.
So,
I'll stop the share there, and we'll take it back to yourself.
okay, and I will bring it back to here, I think. There's so many choices here. I think we're in the right place. You can see my slide now, right? Oh, Matt, I need you to talk. Okay, good, thanks. So if you wanted to get a Pixie copy of that template that works within Pixie, it's like that checklist that your team would go through. And of course, you can totally edit it. Go to that first link. And Jordan, if you have those handy, hopefully you can put those into the chat box. And also, if you want to see it with a spreadsheet version so that you might want to play around with it, you could also get that. And there's the second link that provides the onboarding, same basic workflow, but of course it doesn't have the pre-written, I don't think it does have the pre-written emails and all of that part, but at least it gives you the basics so that you can see it all in one spreadsheet. So with that, hopefully you got a lot of ideas here. Do we have questions, Matt, that we need to answer? Because we have a little bit of time here for that, which was the plan.
Yeah, good point. Jordan's been flying through and answering a lot of these live, which has been brilliant. Thank you for that. Nothing's really stood out to me that we should really bring up. I guess it's more about, does it connect to Zapier? Yes, it does. What does Zapier connect to, such as Go Proposal, Practice Ignition, Calendly, Google Forms, all sorts of interesting things that you can connect up to there. Let me just quickly fly through here. There's another good question that's come through. For example, if you've got a template in your account, is that all you can use? No, you can customize templates to your firm specifics, which chances are you'll need to, because we can't create one perfect for everybody. But that's the beauty of it. You can clone one that we've already done, maybe save yourself 90% of the time, and then straight away you can just make a quick adjustment to make that more appropriate to yourself. So that's a really quick and easy way of utilizing Pixie to take advantage of those templates.
Yeah, and that's
but I think we're all good there, Gabrielle.
That was one of the things I love personally about Pixie, because I looked for a long time for a practice management app for small practices, because most of them I found were built from like large accounting firms, and it was overkill. It wasn't what I needed for a small practice. And it centers on workflows, which of course make a huge difference to make your practice work and provide quality services to your clients. But the thing I liked with Pixie is it has the flexibility in that there's a whole bunch of pre-done templates for all different workflows, from your sales to the operations and everything in between. But you could also create one from scratch. Maybe you have a unique service that you offer to your clients. It's easy to create your own template for workflow that you could use across clients or any specific clients too. So I really like the flexibility on the workflows with that. And that was, for me personally, that was the big seller. That was why I loved to move to Pixie, because of that. Okay, any other questions? Anything on doing the onboarding specifically? Did we have any questions on that?
That's a good point. Let me just let me have a quick read here. There's a couple more that have come in.
Okay. Well, what we can do is, because you might have come here just on the idea of the onboarding workflow, or you might have come here because you wanted to see, how do I do that with Pixie? So if we can launch the poll to ask if anybody wants to get a free trial of Pixie, you're certainly welcome for that. This is basically just to let us know how we're doing, and helps us understand too that when you're coming to our webinars, what are you looking for? So
yeah, that's a good point. That's something I was thinking about earlier. If you wanted a demo from me, the easiest way is to sign up for a trial, and within that trial you can request a demo, and that's where we can use Calendly, ironically, to book a time, and we'll do a Zoom call like we are now. We can just get to know each other a little bit better, how your firm works and how Pixie can potentially help you.
Excellent. And Jordan, you can close that out whenever you're ready. depending on how many people have answered. And again, please, if you are multitasking, come back and answer the poll. With we have so many webinars that happen. So let me just flip over here, and you want to talk about this, Matt? About the free trial if to get one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm funny you mentioned multitasking. I'm terrible at that because I was trying to answer a question, but I'm also looking at the slides. So the questions will have to wait, but maybe I could just answer them live. Briefly, do we recommend a one-person firm without any staff to use Pixie? Absolutely. So it's ranging between one user and about sweet spot's about 20, to be honest. So we're looking more primarily for smaller businesses. Sole practitioners are ideal as well. So that's absolutely the case. Now, if you want to know more about it, please just have a chat with me. I'm happy to do so. We can dive into more examples that we spoke about today.
And I'd also say on that, if you are solo and you're running a small bookkeeping firm, I would say Pixie's a great choice if you're thinking of growing your practice too. Obviously, it can help you with your own organization of what you're doing, but it's really built to be able to grow your practice so that you can have at least a few team members, and that's where it really shines.
Yeah, spot on. Now, Jordan's put this link here into the chat, so please, if you're interested in getting to know more about the product and chatting with me, that's where you can go ahead and connect that up. And the Academy sessions, as I mentioned briefly before, Jordan runs multiple every day, and that's where you can get some real hands-on approach. Now, if you get a 30-day trial, within the first week or two, you'll actually come to find this is the product for me, or maybe not. And this is a really good time to get in on some of those webinars, or maybe not so webinars, it's more of a one-on-one or like a group scenario where you can discuss with other like-minded people, or you can come into a situation where it's you working with a specialist like Jordan to set up what you need according to your business.
Yep. Excellent. I love this too, because it's the flexibility of the do-it-yourself, just because I tend to be like that self-taught type people versus getting some support and assistance. So I love that Pixie makes this available to us. And then
there's been a really good question here from Sonia. Sorry to cut you off there, Gabrielle, but like, can we import a CSV file with a template we use from another software? I'm not sure about if it's template as in like a workflow template. It's got to be Pixie applicable, so it'll have the .pixie at the end to do the import. But we can just do a transpose, create a new template, and just transpose maybe what you're doing from a spreadsheet, for example. But if you've got a range of clients, maybe from small as one client through to 100, you can do an import via a spreadsheet if you'd like. You might have a massive client list of 10,000, totally fine. You can import clients as well.
Yeah, if they have 10,000 clients, they might have a really big staff too.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do have some businesses that are 30 or 40 staff, so Pixie can be used for larger as well, just depending on how you like to do it. But yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I don't think so. Can't see any more in the Q&A. Let me just. Okay. Oh, there's another one here. Sorry. Give me some examples of which apps Pixie can replace. Less is more. An example.
Good
so
question.
Pixie, yeah, that is a great question. It would replace something like a workflow CRM app. So maybe you're using like Salesforce or a HubSpot or something smaller in terms of like a workflow, like an Asana or a ClickUp or accountancy manager, a center, something along those lines. Pixie can help you with that. I didn't mention something before, but when I selected all those clients to deploy workflow for, I can also email them all at the same time. So that's super helpful if you're like maybe narrowing down a selection of your client base and trying to upsell them or simply remind them or just say Happy New Year. You can do a lot of emailing. So maybe if you're using a MailChimp or something along those lines, Pixie can take that and do it for you. So maybe you might save some money on a subscription here and there as well.
Yeah, and I know for me, because I was very focused on workflows before Pixie came into my world, is I was using Process Street, which works similarly, but is not built specifically for accounting and bookkeeping firms. It's kind of built for any company, but I was using Process Street. I was trying to use the QuickBooks Work they call it like a practice management, and it's not really, but I was trying to use those, and coming to Pixie was like, oh yes, this is much better for being able to have the clients all together with it focused around the workflows, and then being able to get the automation from within the workflows too is great.
Yeah, nice. I was just about to ask you, Gabrielle, what did you What would you say to that answer, that question? But there you go.
And
Perfect.
I wouldn't say it hasn't replaced, because I also have as my email client, I use Gmail. I wouldn't say it hasn't replaced my Gmail inbox, but it's something that it has that's really handy that stops me from wasting time in my inbox with Gmail, is that when I'm dealing with a client that I want to see, okay, did we say, what was that email that they sent me with this information? Within Pixie, I just go to the client record and it pulls from Gmail all of my clients' emails, so that then I can find what we were talking about, and I can even respond to them from within Pixie. So that's a handy feature, I would say. It streamlines it a bit.
Nice. Perfect. All right.
All right.
Looks like we're coming to an end.
We are at the end. So thank you very much. Appreciate everyone's time and participation. And obviously, Matt, thank you so much for showing us what Pixie, just a little tip of the iceberg of what Pixie's like.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for that. Again, terrible multitasking I am. I'm trying to type an answer to a question. A question was, can Pixie be integrated with any accounting software? Through Zapier, it can. For example, QuickBooks and Xero.
Yes, yes. Excellente. Well, thank you very much. Once again.
Amazing. Thank you so much for hosting there, Gabrielle. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and of course, we're going to tell you that if you want to learn more, go sign up for Pixie, get the free trial, or just reach out to them and contact them, let them know you were on this webinar, and you can get what you need from them. They're very responsive. So with that, have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.